Alrighty, so now we are ready to actually start hooking up the material off of these masks that we created. Let's start with the normals. I'm going to come into my library and I'm going to get a height to normal. And we are actually going to need several of these. And we're going to start hooking up these masks. All right, so I've got my slush, which is, this stuff here. And we're going to use this for the normal for our slush. And we are going to combine it with our slush height. And we're going to use an overlay for this. I want that one instead. So this is going to be the slushy areas. That's its private normal there. I'm going to duplicate this. I like that new feature. It can get a little annoying. The next one we're going to do is the surface of the ice, which is this. Oh, it helps to hook it up with a normal first. So that's got those scratches on it. And we're going to combine it with the height. And we're going to blend it again using an overlay blend. And we probably want to tone down that stuff a little bit with the opacity as well. But we'll take a look at it once we get it hooked up. And now, so we've got the slush and the ice. So we're going to get another blend node. And we're going to put the slush on top of the ice with a copy blend using the slush mask. And then we're going to get another copy, and we're going to put this over the water. So we're going to need another height to normal that we're going to hook up to just that. And for this one, we're going to use the water mask. Fingers crossed. Let's put it in here. That looks all right. That slush isn't moving. Yeah, we're going to have to deal with that later. See how those are moving over the slush and it's not really doing the same thing. We have to address that. Let's take a look at that. Because that's moving according to this function here. I mean, it is moving with it. It doesn't look like it's moving with it because obviously it's all coming off of, oh, this isn't coming off of that. That's the problem. Okay. Because if it's all based on the FX maps, it has to be, whether it's visually looking like it's moving or not, but we don't have it attached here. And it is a bit of a hack because these two textures that we're laying on top of this stuff, if we had them in the effects map, they would get all mushed up. So we kind of have to have it separate. But it's not working the same way it did when I did it the first time, and that's because it's kind of a hack. So all we really need to do is just get this stuff to move a little bit more in sync with what's happening with the effects maps. So let's take a look at what we got in here. Again, I'm off my notes, so we're going to kind of have to explore this together. So we've got time times 0.1 doing that. I want to see where I've got a time. So if I come up here containing text or variable, it will give me a drop down of any function I have going on here, and I can just highlight my animated nodes this way, so it kind of makes my life easier. Now, my two effects maps are animated in here, so it's not showing up. But first thing I want to do is, I think, make sure all of these are the same. And I'm pretty sure they are. No, they're not. Okay. So the dots, I have moving at time times 0.1. And then the slush height I have moving at that more complicated animation. So let's come back in here and take a look at how this is actually animating. So I'm going to set it up to its fastest. So I think they're wiggling properly. What's happening is the dots aren't moving. So we have to make that happen. So that's this one that's we're having a problem with. I think we could probably start with this. I'm copying that, and we're going to come into this disorder, and we're going to paste it in here, so at least we're starting with the same thing. Let's see what this looks like. The dots are moving along, so I think now let's come back to our external function. Ah, there's our problem. I made a mistake here. So let's do the same thing to this one, because it's not the same as the other one. I'm pretty sure it's 0.1. I'm going to double check before we publish that out. I'm multiplying by 0.05. Okay, those two things are now the same. Let's see how that looks. All right, they're the same, but they're moving too slow. So let's try 0.1 and 0.1 in here. Oh, wait, this should be 0.5, and this should be 0.1. And I'm not having a good decimal day, and we need to do it to the other one too. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that those are the same. If not, we will find out shortly. Right. It's still too slow. I mean, I think they're working in tandem together now, but I want more action. Oh, this is, wait, you know what? I'm confusing myself. I'm just going to come back in here. I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to paste it in the other one because they're different, and that's part of what's confusing me because I got them in different order. So let's paste it in here. We currently have this one as the output node. I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff, and now these two are the same. And I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to just use this one because this way we're dealing with the same thing because I've got them in all different orders here. Oh, I see what I did wrong. That's our problem right here. Yeah, wow, I can't believe I missed that. Okay. It's actually exactly what I was talking about earlier, that because we're doing this average, we had negative and positives, and we forgot to do this absolute, which is why it was stepping all over each other. And I bet you we don't have to change a single thing beyond going back into here and getting that absolute in there. There we go. Now they're moving together. Yeah, and that's why the absolute is important, because we're taking averages, because if you add -1 and +1, you end up with 0. And that's why nothing was moving, because the numbers were being super small. And it is a hack, but it's still kind of, it doesn't throw itself in your face. I mean, they're still not moving exactly the same, but it doesn't really matter as long as they're moving sort of the same. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we sorted that out. Let's move on. All right, so it works. And get rid of this. And we've got our normals set up. So we can draw a frame around those. And the next thing we need to work on is our height. Okay, so we're basically going to do it along the same lines that we did the normals. So I'm going to get my blend node. And I'm going to get a levels because we're going to want to be able to adjust these separately for our heights. And I will hook that up to my ice height and get another levels node. And that I'm going to plug into my slush height. And then we can put them all together according to the ice mask. And I have my ice on top of my slush. So that one goes in foreground and my slush goes in the background. Next, we're going to do it for the water. So again, we're going to put this in the top, and I'm going to get my water mask and another levels node, which I will plug into my water waves. And we can go ahead and plug that into our height. And I didn't see any height change. I think maybe we don't have that set in. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to set that to 1. That's better. But it's all reversed now. I mean, we have to actually adjust this. Right, so let's start with our ice. Checking my mask there. Yeah, so that's our ice here, and that we want that the highest. And I also want it chunkier. So we can come into our levels, single click, and let's get it chunkier first. And then we take the whole thing and make it higher. So that's going to be our highest part. Let's click on that final one. That's probably the best one to look at. I think I'm going to leave my slush alone for the moment, because it looks probably a good medium one. And let's do our water height, and we're going to make that really, really, really dark. Looks pretty good. And let's see what that looks like in the player. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, I mean, the main height's okay. We went to all that trouble to create that slush height, and I'm not seeing any of it here. It's getting cut out. And we need to take care of that. But otherwise, I think it looks okay. I want to get more of that crackliness in there. And the mask that we're using is cutting it out. So we're probably going to end up having to make a new mask. Let's take a look. And they're appearing here, and they're disappearing here. So that's our problem, and we are going to have to make a new water mask. Because this mask is great for the color. It's what we're going to want for the color, but I think we're going to need a new one for the normals. So we're going to have to invent something new. It's not in my notes, but here we go. So I think the thing to do is actually work it off of the dots one. So let's make a new mask off of that. So we'll get another blend, and we'll base it off of our slush mask, and we'll combine it with our ice mask, and this will block out all the stuff that is not water. And we can use the lighten. And I don't like that seam there, so let's go ahead and get a levels node, and we can kind of get rid of that. That's probably good enough. So all we have left is the water, and we can use this as just the mask for the normals, because the other one's great for color, and it's what we're going to need for there. Oh man, you know, it's really hard to tell what's what here. You know what? I'm going to just go ahead and put a temporary color in here, because this is kind of hard to see what we're doing. So I'm going to get this uniform color, and we'll make it white. So I'll put that on the top, and then we will use the ice mask. And this will give us a much better idea of what's going on with the colors. Ah, much better. So we can see what our slush is and what our ice is. Okay. Well, I'm seeing a couple problems here. First of all, we need to have the slush move according to what the water's doing, or closer to what the water's doing, because it just looks weird right now. So we have to add an animation that's going to be different than what we've got now. And then the other thing I don't like is this hard edge. That edge is nasty. So we're going to have to make a new mask. Right, let's start with the mask. We went to all the trouble of getting rid of the edge here in this one. And I think we're going to use this as the basis for the mask for the normals, because it doesn't have that hard edge already. And let's get a blur rather, and we'll just make it fuzzier. And then we'll get a levels node and brighten that up, so it'll be more of a mask. Yeah, I think that'll make a much better mask. And we will just replace the slush mask with this one. Oh, wait, I'm still getting a hard edge. What is going on? Okay, let's get rid of that levels for starters. Still a hard edge. Where is it coming from? Ah, it's coming from here. All right, so you know what? We're going to just use the same mask for both of them. That's what we need. Yeah. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Oh, well, that edge is much better. That's much nicer. Right, yeah, that's good. So all we really need to take care of now is the animation for the slush. All right, so now all we need to do is fix the movement of that slush. So this I'm going to leave alone. I just want that height to move a little bit. Okay, so let's see what we can do about that. The problem is this, that when ice speed is 0, we can add and subtract and do all these other things to it, but what ends up getting multiplied by time is 0. So it's not moving. So what we have to do to whatever it is we do, we need to do it with something that is not a multiplication. And we're going to do it with an addition. And I need to add a separate animation to the end result of whatever's going on here. I shouldn't have gotten rid of that multiplication. I'm still going to need it. Let's make it 0.05, which was what we were using before for a starter. And we're going to add it to the result of our main animation. So when ice speed is at 0, it's not going to move, but it will if we set this as the output. The slowest this will ever be is 0.05. It'll never be 0. At least I hope not. Let's see if that actually works. Yeah. Except it's all over the place now. That's because we didn't do our masks right. That's still the other mask. We have to take a look at that. But that slush is moving around now. That's good. I think maybe a little bit slower. Let's try 0.02. Yeah, it's probably better. Okay, so let's fix this wherever that is. And that's our slush. This is supposed to be the ice mask. So that's our slush. This is our ice, and that is backwards. So we're going to do that. And then we cut the water out of it. I believe that is correct. Let's take a look. Yeah. I don't think the heights are set in here either. Nope. So we'll set that in. It's starting to look like something. Yeah, we might adjust all that stuff slightly, but I think the basic idea is good here. Let's continue forward. So get rid of this. And let's draw a frame around this, and we'll call this our height. And let's do our color next, because that's going to make things easier to deal with later. Okay, so this has got its own little mask. You know what, actually, let's do our specular level and roughness first. Get those out of the way, because they're pretty simple. And then we can concentrate on working on our color. Okay, so let's do the spec level. I've got my ice height, and I'm going to need a blend, and we're going to need a bunch of levels nodes. All right, so I'm going to take my slush. Yeah, I think I'm going to take this one. And it's going to be grayscale, so I don't really need to put a black in here. And this I'm going to use my slush mask for. And then I'm going to get another levels node. And I'm going to get, I think, this one. It's got the kind of information I want. And we will put those over each other. And that should give me, well, you know, actually, I'm going to cut the water out because it may not stay black. And this time I am going to use the water mask, because all of this stuff that's going on with the normals, it's going to be the same shininess as the water. The little white bits will be a little bit different. So let's pull this out where we can attach it. And we'll put this into our roughness. And we can adjust it as we see it here. So this is our ice here, and right now it's the roughest of all of them. It's probably about right, actually, because, you know, I want these top bits to be pretty rough, and then it gets pretty smooth as it goes down. So I'm going to leave that alone for now, and I'm going to take a look at this slush. Probably like that. And then my water is going to be the shiniest of all. So I really didn't need this last one. I think I'll probably do without, because these two are pretty much identical. Okay, I think for now that's okay. We'll call that roughness. And finally, before we get to our color, I want to do our specular level. Let's get that set up. It's going to be essentially the inverse of our roughness. I don't know, that's worth redoing because the levels are going to have to be different. So we're going to get 2 levels, and we're going to get a blend. Oh, we're also going to need an invert grayscale. So ice. We're having the top bits the roughest. We do want it inverted for our specular. And that's going to go over our slush. Which is using this mask. So we'll use this mask. Yeah, we're going to have to, we're going to do this the opposite way. I'm going to lay it on top of that using this mask. The unmixed one, yeah. And then I just have to decide when I want for my slush. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead with this one. But again, I actually want to reverse it first. So I'm holding down shift. I'm going to just move it there. See what that looks like when we start messing around with it. Yeah, we're going to have to cut the water out. So I'm dealing with the ice in here right now. And then we're going to need another blend node. And I think maybe, yeah, that one's going to cut too much out. We'll use this one. Yeah. When I was experimenting with this, once I had the colors on it, the water actually looked better with less specularity on it. We'll stick a separate color in here. But I think what it did was that it helps, it made these look like they were sparkling a little bit more. Let's put a uniform color in there right now, and I'll make it a really low number, and then we can fool around with it later once we get the colors in there. So this we're going to call our specular level. And now I believe we're ready to do our color. Because I want that little, yeah, it looks like, I'm liking the way this mask looks. I do want that halo because we're going to use that for colors. All right, let's get started with that. I'm going to make a couple more colors. And before we actually get too deep into it, we need to make one more mask. And that's going to be to kind of, this is like a giant white blob right now. And I want to be able to give it a bit more variety according to that height map. So I've got like certain parts of it where it's whiter and then other parts that are more scratched up. Now this is according to height. So the highest bits are staying the cleanest. And then as it gets more melty and closer to the water, it gets a little bit bluer with more scratches on it. So that's what we're going for with this next mask that we're going to make. So essentially what we're doing is we're splitting up the ice mask kind of a little bit more. Right. We are going to get a transform 2D, and we're going to get the texture that we're going to use first, and that's going to be this one. And we're going to cut it in half again, and we're going to get a levels node, and we're going to tighten it up. I kind of want an undulating color there. Again, we can fine tune it once we get there. And let's get a blend node and a gradient that I'm going to turn into a grayscale. All right. Now, I'm going to come back to my ice surface mask, because it's got these nice plateaus of of grayscale rather. So it makes for nice sort of areas of color. And I'm going to plug that into this gradient mask. And this is the area where I'm going to be applying my blue scratchy stuff. So I think we decided this, I'm trying to remember where our slush is. If you ever have trouble with that, you can always get a blend node and just like lay stuff on top of itself just to see what's going on. Well, I should probably have done it the other way around. So, is that my slush? That's not what I want. I wanted my ice mask, actually. So, as I bring this opacity down, I can see where everything is. So, these are my areas of slush. So, that's completely broken up. So, this is the color that I'm looking to pull out with my gradient map. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm actually going to want black on either side of it. Flip these things around. So in the middle of this gradient somewhere is the area that I want to find. And I'm going to slide this around until I find it. That's too much. And that's about right. So this corresponds to that middle gray. And we can double check we're looking at it here, and that, you know, it's basically the same shape there. So that's going to be our mask for where we're going to lay it down. And then I kind of also wanted to take this, we were getting ahead of ourselves. This is actually the final mask. There's going to be another blend in here. But, you know, so that's the entire area that we're going to be affecting here. And I want to cut it down, but I don't want it like all over the place because we've still got the scratches and stuff. So I'm going to make another mask for this, and I'm going to do it kind of the same way with the gradient map. And here we're going to work it off the same map. But now we're correcting for these scratches where we want those scratchy bits to appear. So I've got this stuff as kind of the area for where I've got, well, it's easier to show you. Underneath the scratches, there's like, you know, blueness. So that's what that mask is for. And we're going to feed this into that. We'll leave it like this. It should be in that order. I was looking at my notes. I did it backwards. But now but first thing I want to do is the scratches. So I'm going to take this gradient and I'm going to correct for getting those scratches in there. So I think that's the shape we're going for, right? Let's lay them over, make sure we're talking about the exact same spots. I need to make that a grayscale. So let's bring the opacity down. And we can come back in here and start messing around with our, so that's more the size that we want it. And now we're correcting for just getting those scratches in there. Let's hook it up and see what happens. No, that's not right. You know, there's something weird with my notes. I'm not going to follow my notes. I'm just going to use my brain, and we're just going to put this together. Okay. But let's get our colors sorted out. We are going to want a white for our ice. Then we're going to want like a much lighter blue. And then we're going to want a blue for our water. In fact, I'm going to come back. I like this color a lot better. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to make it lighter. So we're now just going to put this together according to our logic. I'm not even going to follow my notes. This is the color for our water. So this is going to be the background. And then this is going to be the color for the lightest bits of our slush. And we're going to use this slush mask here. Then we're going to get another gradient map. And we're just going to colorize this guy because it's dealing with the water underneath. So I'm going to get into my gradient editor, and for my darkest color, highlight that, and I'm going to pick that. And I think I'm going to gray it down a little bit. Maybe lighten it. And let's get some points, and let's start getting a little bit of variety in here. I'm just going to hook it up just so I can see what my ice looks like. I'm going to go back and I'm going to pick my watercolor again. So I've gone too far up in there. I just want to keep it. Yeah, I think I'm going to bring it down a little. There's too much of the non-white, I think, right now. Okay, well, for now, let's just leave that. Okay, so this is our slush. This is sort of the basic ice, and we're going to now blend these two together according to our ice mask, because we're just laying the ice on top of the slush. Yeah, I got it wrong. We're going to have to... It's easier to do it if you can actually see what you're doing as you're doing it. Yeah, this is different in my notes. We may not need this, but I'm just going to copy out what I have in my notes right now as far as the color goes, and we can worry about it afterwards. Okay, I know what I did different here. You know what? Yeah, that'll work. The whole idea of this white here was that this was a bit blurred. I had it blurred out in the mask, but I think we can do it here. I'm going to take a blur, and I'm going to give those little things a bit of a halo. And then this way there's like a little halo of color around the pure white stuff. And now let's find these colors, now that we can see where everything is. So this is the basic color, but you can see how it's like really flat, and that's why I wanted to lay this other thing on top of it. So we're going to get another blend node, and we're going to get kind of another blue. Again, you know what, I'm going to base it off of this, because as long as we're keeping with the same color scheme here. So this one I think I want a little bit brighter and a little bit less gray. And now we just have to make the mask for it. And then we want to cut out the bits where the ice are. Yeah, makes sense. You know what, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to copy this black, and I'm going to put it here. All right, so we're now trying to break this up in a way that we find pleasing. So probably like that. So it's just going to give a little bit of color variety to it, that's all. So that's this mask in here. So it's got like those little patches of color. Yeah, those are my scratches. I'd like to see like them a little bit darker. That looks all right. Let's plug it in. We ended up not needing that. That's pretty cool. All right. Uh-oh. Where am I getting that hard edge again? Okay, I see the problem I'm having with this. It's about the normals. I think these colors are okay. I'm going to make a frame around these. And we're getting a hard edge again. All right, for starters, let's bring this down, the actual height of the normal. And then that water's, it's a height problem, I think. I mean, I think the normal looks better, so I'm going to leave that alone. Bring it up just a little bit. But if you look at it on the edge like this, you can see that water, it's dipping down lower than the water. So I think this is the problem here. Ah, yeah, there we go. We've still got the old mask on here. So let's use our same mask that we used here. Yeah, now it's heading in the right direction. Now that stuff is on top of the water, not under the water, which is what it was doing before. It still could be higher. And where are we? I'm not going to use a height in that water, because otherwise it kind of pops up over the slush. But now it seems to be sitting on top of the water. All right, I think we're almost there. I'm basically happy with it. I think I'd like to see a little bit more color variation in the slush. It's a little boring, like from an art perspective, but I think the mechanics are working fine. I think it might be nice to overlay that slush on top of that water normal. We are going to adjust this mask right here. I'm just going to bring the opacity on this down like this. And that should start getting some of those waves into the slush. So we'll get this to about 50%. Let's try that out. We'll do it up to the height, but I like that. I think it's going to work better. I don't know if it'll work with the same mask. Let's see. You know, before we do that, let's bring this back up so this actually has some height happening with it. So there's something to actually undulate with. I think that's a little bit better. Yeah, I think we're getting there. I think maybe get those halos a little bit lighter and maybe a bit bigger. Yeah, I think that's better. And maybe go a little bit less green here. Okay, I think we're done, because at this point it's just aesthetics. You know what? I think maybe a little less slush too. Let's come all the way back to our slush mask. I mean, it runs okay at 2K, but it runs much better at 1, and it doesn't look bad. So yeah, that's it. There's a lot of fancy gradient work involved here, but I think it's a pretty okay material. Anyway, I hope that's been helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.